The rain was falling so hard it sounded like thousands of tiny fists punching the ground, and in that stormy darkness, a single father named Ian was running barefoot across the muddy road, chasing after his injured dog who had suddenly bolted into the night. His heart pounded not just from fear for his dog, but from the heavy truth that had been weighing on him for months. He was on the edge of losing his home, his job, and the fragile life he had built for his young daughter. On that desperate night, he didn't know that fate was pulling him toward a moment that would change everything. Because at the end of that rain-soaked road, inside a broken-down van and dressed in a torn bridal gown, sat a wheelchair-bound woman fighting to stay conscious, a woman whose life and secrets would collide with his in ways he could never imagine. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the beauty of humanity, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Soul Tale. Your support helps us continue spreading heart-touching stories. Ian's life had been a long stretch of sacrifices and quiet wounds. His wife had passed away 2 years earlier, leaving him alone to raise their 6-year-old daughter, Hannah, whose small hands and big eyes were the only reasons he kept moving. He worked 3 small jobs: morning shifts at a workshop, evening shifts as a delivery helper, and late-night repairs on appliances brought by neighbors. His dog, Shadow, an old black Labrador with cloudy eyes and a gentle soul, had become Hannah's emotional anchor and the last living memory of her mother, who had rescued the dog years before. But life had grown cruel. Bills piled like mountains, the landlord's warnings grew sharper, and Hannah's school fees were overdue again. Ian had learned to hide his exhaustion behind soft smiles so his daughter wouldn't see how close they were to falling apart. That night, Shadow had suddenly collapsed. As Ian carried him toward the vet, thunder cracked so loudly that the frightened dog slipped from his grip and limped away into the darkness. Chasing him through the storm, Ian's breath burned in his chest. The world was only rain, wind, and fear until he reached the old bridge by the forest and stopped. Shadow stood barking frantically at a crashed van tilted on one side. The headlights flickered weakly, barely revealing the figure sitting inside. Ian rushed to the window, wiping the rain from the cracked glass. Inside, he saw a woman wearing a soaked, torn wedding dress. Her makeup was smeared from crying, her hair was tangled, and she sat in a wheelchair that appeared jammed between the seats. Her phone lay shattered on the floor. She was shivering violently, her lips pale, her eyes hollow with shock. Ian forced open the door despite the cold biting into his hands, lifted her carefully, and carried her toward his small home nearby, Shadow limping beside him as if understanding the gravity of the moment. The woman's name was Liana. She was around 27, with delicate features that still held traces of elegance even beneath the mud and rain. But it was her eyes that told the truth, eyes filled with a lifetime's worth of pain. Ian placed her on the only bed in the house and covered her with blankets while Hannah pressed warm cloths against her hands. In the soft light of their tiny home, surrounded by peeling paint and the smell of damp wood, Liana finally breathed steadily. As she rested, Ian noticed the wheelchair's damaged frame, the broken wheels, the bruises on her arms, and the red marks where straps had once held her. He didn't know what had happened to her, but he recognized suffering when he saw it. Hannah brought her warm soup. Shadow rested his head near her feet, and in that fragile silence, Liana shed the kind of tears that come when a heart has carried too much for too long. Over the next few days, Liana became a quiet presence in their home. She hardly spoke about her past, and Ian didn't push her. She helped Hannah with handwriting practice, laughed softly at Shadow's playful attempts to comfort her, and spent long hours staring at the hills outside their window as if replaying memories she wished she could erase. Ian repaired her wheelchair using spare metal pieces from his workshop and improvised new wheels, staying up nights to make sure it would roll smoothly. When she first touched the repaired chair, she stared at it with trembling fingers as if no one had ever shown her kindness without wanting something in return. Slowly, she opened up. She told Ian she had been on her way to her wedding, a marriage arranged by her relatives not for love, but for connections and business power. She was wealthy, she told him, unimaginably wealthy, but trapped in a world where her disability made her a bargaining chip rather than a human being. She had run away after learning the groom's family had accepted her only for access to her father's billion-dollar company. Her relatives had tried to force her into the vehicle, and in her panic, the driver crashed while trying to control the situation. She escaped when the men abandoned the van to call for backup. Ian listened quietly, not reacting to the mention of wealth. What mattered to him was that she had been hurt, used, and abandoned. And for reasons she couldn't explain, she felt safe in his little home, a place with cracked walls but genuine warmth. Days turned into weeks, and Liana became part of their world. She watched Ian's struggles firsthand, the overdue notices tucked behind bottles, the worn shoes he kept restitching, the meals he often skipped so Hannah always had enough. She admired his resilience and the gentle, determined love he gave his daughter and dog. Ian, without realizing it, had shown